You're now listening to the Something Good Podcast Network. Please press any key to continue.
Alright, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of The Couch Potatoes. I'm Alex
Morrison.
And we're here, and it is Halloween season once again, which means we are doing Halloween episodes all month long, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We gotta keep the Halloween spirit up. It's not like we're doing... We might do, like, a Christmas episode between all the shows. I don't know, actually, not to do any spoilers. I
You know
think
who doesn't do Thanksgiving episodes? Nobody. No, let's do a Thanksgiving episode.
Ooh, we could do...
How the whites lied about Thanksgiving.
No, I was going to say we could do a watch-along to Thanksgiving.
Oh, God. I'll probably start drinking by then.
No, I've only seen that movie once, like years ago when I was like a young teen.
Yeah. Thanksgiving, there's a part 2 and 3. The problem is they introduced part 3 first.
I remember reading about that. I completely forgot about that, though.
No one knows what part 2 is about. It's like Thanksgiving part 3, and it's just like, wait. Did I miss part 2?
We could also do an episode on trauma films.
Oh, yeah.
Like old Toxie. I remember seeing that pretty young, and that leaving an impression of like that was like the first fucked up superhero.
Yeah, like a lot. Those movies are really good when you're right at the right age of like 14 and 15.
That's around the time I saw maybe a little younger.
And then you can kind of brace yourself for like the more crazier ones later on, especially if you decide that horror is your thing.
Yeah.
Then you start getting into Tokyo Gore Police and like other terrible movies.
Well, see, you realized you liked horror pretty early on.
Yeah, when I was like 6.
I didn't think I liked horror early on. The only thing I knew I liked early on was Frankenstein.
Yeah, so like the cool thing about those old ones is back in the day when those first came out, the Draculas, the Mummy, Frankenstein, Creature from the Black Lagoon,
The original Universal.
Yeah, those were legitimately scary to people. They, at that time, if it's kind of hard to say it, but like put yourself in that mindset, because I mean you talked about it before.
Yeah,
About
last year's Couch Potatoes,
Yeah.
we did a whole episode on Universal Monsters,
Yeah.
so go check that out if you guys want to.
Yeah, and it's a good little throwback because
And we kind of break down each monster and what it meant to society at that point, and what the allegory and the mirror of it was.
so like what we think of horror, at that time of body horror, torture, stuff we kind of find repugnant now. When we see horror movies, it's like, oh my God, how could they do that? Turn of the century, 1899, 1900, 1799, 1800. That's part of religion. Like that's literally part of like the Spanish Inquisition. The Italian Revolution. This is like yeah, we're going to torture people who aren't Christians. Or even going further, we're going to torture people who are Christians. It's like it's body horror is one of the many pillars of society that we have to have.
Wait, pillar of society that we have to have?
Yes, it's.
We are so off track from what the title of this episode is, but I still want you to keep going.
But like the sociology of it is, we need to see bad shit.
Okay.
We need to see bad things. Back in the day, it was public executions, public hangings. Ripping a dude in half. The whole end of Braveheart, where they draw and quarter the poor guy. Hangings, burning witches. And they didn't even have violent video games. Like, what the fuck? Yeah. But we need violence.
But it's the video games, Chris.
Yeah. Dude, when Nintendo 64 came out and Super Mario 64 came out, I killed all the kittens. But we need that to kind of outtake our violent tendencies. Why do you not hear about riots from way back when? It's because they watched people kill people for a living. Like we have it now in like a lesser extent of football, basketball, and stuff like that. Even horror movies. It's a bread and circus mentality, but we need to have it for society to kind of base control.
Okay,
And that's why like the psychology of horror is basically what that is. It's right up there with football.
Yeah, okay.
Like you need to watch someone get hurt. You need to watch somebody, and it kind of gives you.
I think you're just trying to slowly explain why you like watching people cry on YouTube.
Yeah,
I think you're really just trying to find your justification for liking that.
Yeah, I'm a sadist, y'all.
But no, again, awesome intro. But again, if you're looking at the title of this episode, no, I didn't mistitle it. We are going to talk about horror anthologies on this episode, notably Trick or Treat, which I know the most about. But the origins of like horror anthologies, would you say really started with something like Creepshow?
So your horror anthologies really started with stuff like The Twilight Zone, Outer Limits.
See, I love The Twilight Zone growing up because we had just gotten Dish Network, or no, DirecTV, sorry. We had just gotten DirecTV, and that included the Sci-Fi Channel. And there, for a bit, it was just like it felt like every Saturday or Sunday night, they would have a marathon of the Twilight Zone. And I would just binge watch that. I'm sure maybe some of the episodes don't hold up as well, but I remember just being at the edge of my seat with everyone because it was just such a cool. They always played out more like mysteries than actual like horror, and I think that's what was really cool about it.
Yeah, one of the first ones, like in let's say horror movies, was the Trilogy of Terror. Starring Karen Black. Karen Black was a huge part of the horror scene. She's basically the Sherry Moon before Sherry Moon. She was in so many like made-for-TV movies, you know, these B-list, because all horror movies back then were just B-list movies, you know, especially in the 70s, because then we get, like, our slashers, which kind of brings it up a notch to the A-list, you know, when you start getting your Friday the 13th, Halloween's, you know, Town of the Dirty Sundown type stuff. And that anthology series is very well done. It's dated a little bit, but in 1975, Trilogy of Terror really is a good one. I didn't see it until later in my life, until I was about 19.
Okay.
But because I grew up watching Creepshow, Tales from the Crypt, and you know the stuff we grew up with. And you don't start going down that, you know, back catalog till later in life. Just like music, you know, you don't start listening to back catalog stuff until later in life.
Absolutely.
Because no one's raised on, you know, album 1 of Leonard Skinner. It's always second helpings or greatest hits.
No, and that's a very fair point. But actually, to that point, I don't have a lot of memory of watching stuff like Creepshow or Tales from the Crypt and stuff like that.
Tales from the Crypt was so fun. I can remember the very first episode is actually the very first episode that I've ever watched.
Okay.
It started. It was The Electrocutioner. It was a guy who electrocuted people for the state, and he loses his job. And he decides to kill people.
As you do.
He started killing bad people. And the guy that plays him is like one of those great no-name actors we've seen all the time. And he was in Tales from the Crypt like 4 or 5 times.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so
it's like you always remember the face but not the name.
Yeah. Ed Sadler. That's his name.
Okay.
Ed Sadler. Great actor. And that kind of kept Tales of the Crypt, which is actually just a story of the old banned comics from the 40s and 50s.
And that's why I always knew about Tales from the Crypt. I was a bigger comic book nerd than I was a horror fan. But through that, I kind of started drawing my connections, and the bridges honestly started crossing. Like the more I kind of started getting into comic books, the more I started kind of getting into horror and things like that. Like when I was young, I was a little pussy kid. I did not like any of that stuff. I didn't want to see blood. I didn't want to see people fighting. I was a little round little mush ball. But it's like just something eventually clicked between liking like Kiss, Spider-Man, comic books, Frankenstein. It all kind of cultivated all at once. And it's like I kind of found it all at once and went, ooh, okay, I like this weird fantasy. And you know what? Fantasy can be a little dark and it's fun, you know, that kind of shit.
And what's funny is like your more blue collar audience, you know, your average family, they would have like, let's say HBO, and Tales of the Crypt would be on. It'd be later at night. And the cool thing about Tales from the Crypt is every episode could be a movie. Every fucking episode could be a great horror movie, but they just condensed it down so fucking much, going down even from that first episode. But when you get Trilogy of Terror, what was really cool was you had George Romero, Stephen King, John Carpenter, all these guys come together to make basically Creepshow.
I looked it up. I feel like I remember watching this because I definitely remember the little main character.
Yes,
when
the
you
voodoo
look
doll.
it up on
the voodoo doll. The Trilogy of Terror had 3 great horror stories, but they all starred the same person, Karen Black. She played 3 different people, and it was very well done. A friend of mine showed it to me a while, almost 10 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a great movie. And what was cool was because of that movie, the bigger guys who started coming up in horror decided saying, hey, we can make Creepshow because of this. This has a cult following by that time. And Creepshow, doesn't come out till 1982.
Right.
Now, the plan for Creepshow was we would get 3 horror directors to make their own short stories into this, and this.
Right.
And their plan was 3 anthology movies. So 9 tales of terror altogether.
Right.
So with Creepshow, the first one, we get some really good stories from Stephen King, Tom Savini. We get great actors like Leslie Nielsen. Stephen King actually stars in one of them. Ted Danson is in it, and Leslie Nielsen from like The Naked Gun and stuff plays a villain.
Ooh,
a very good villain, because people forget that Leslie Nielsen came from television and movies as a villain. He only started doing comedic shit when he got older.
Right.
But the Creepshow, man, had some really good stories.
So was there a reason why you were saying originally 3? Because reading the little synopsis here, it does say a compendium of 5 short stories.
No, so movies. So they were going to have 3 anthology movies. Each one had so many tales.
Well, what happened?
Same thing with most of our favorite stuff. Production stuff producers get involved. Some rights get changed around. But there is kind of a silver lining at the end of it later on after the second movie, because Creepshow 3, if anybody chances to watch it, take your eyes out, because that movie is terrible. Like, it's terrible not because of the stories, it's terrible because of the acting.
Well, see, I feel that way about probably the only anthology movie I've watched as of recent, aside from the main one of this episode, that being VHS.
Those were fantastic.
See, I liked the first VHS.
I like all of them.
I really did not like the second one, and I remember watching the trailer for the third one and went, nah.
Yeah.
But I remember loving the first one.
VHS 94 was neat.
Okay, see, I didn't actually know about that until I started looking things up for this episode.
But yeah, so like you get like VHS, your dot cam.
I actually saw VHS in theaters.
Yeah,
when it was being shown. I think that's part of the reason I enjoyed it.
My
so
favorite
much.
one is the Harpy, where they try to that guy's date rapes that girl.
Oh yeah, she's like, I like you.
She splits her fucking face open and then flies up in the air and catches his ass.
Yeah,
that was fantastic.
I feel like I remember liking the one that I don't remember the details of it. I've only watched it a few times, but there was one with a chick by a pool, or like in a house, and something was going on in the house.
Oh, aliens. They were attacked by aliens.
Yes, I remember liking that one.
That's the third story.
Yeah.
That's the tail end of the movie.
I remember kind of liking that one, mainly because there were some what the fuck moments in it. Like, the others just felt like, oh shit, that's
like,
fucking creepy. And the story in between was probably my favorite.
With the people in the hotel room.
No, in the abandoned house where they're viewing the VHS
Okay,
tapes.
so the base storyline.
Yes, the base storyline was actually my favorite of the whole thing. That kept
they break
me
into
riveted.
they break into a house to find a dead body.
Yeah,
and then the dead body, when they come back, the dead body's gone, and then the guy's gone, and then it's like, oh fuck.
Yeah, that honestly kept me the most engaged out of all of it, because I was just, like, for some of the shorts, I remember sitting through them going, all right, yeah, whatever, finish this up so we can kind of get some more of that in between story, because I like that. And then some of the stories, like the kid in the woods, that was another good one. So I was like, oh shit, all right, this was pretty neat.
Oh yeah, the teens in the woods where she like basically sacrifices them to a static monster.
Yeah, I was just like, that's weird, but I also like Lost, so
I haven't seen that in about 6 years. I still remember every fucking episode. It's fucking crazy. And like, what's cool is, you have people who actually do anthology movies that are actually interconnected in a weird way. John Carpenter did this first with some of his movies. All right, so you have The Thing. What not people realize is The Thing is connected vaguely to his End of the World Apocalypse anthology. The other one was Lord of Darkness.
Well, how's it vaguely connected?
each one is a progenitor of, because his idea was they're all going to be connected. These are all steps to the apocalypse. The Thing, we avert the apocalypse with the Thing.
Okay.
Lord of Darkness, we release Satan from the bottle. We finally stop him at the tail end, starting Sam Neill and fucking the Asian guy from Tremors. I love that actor. Saddest fucking story I've ever read about an actor. And I'm trying to remember the third one, but it was an end of days type thing. But he had made these 3 movies, and I didn't realize till later on after I read up on them and stuff like that. Like you hear the horror of Hollywood documentaries and stuff like, oh yeah, like John Carpenter, these were all connected in a weird way. He just production companies were changed, so like he couldn't do the story quite well. You know, horror movie by committee type shit. Because Lord of Darkness is a wild ass fucking movie.
Be a great metal band.
Oh yeah, I think it is a metal band.
If it's not,
in Norway somewhere, they're probably died in a forest,
taking their photos.
Click. And some, with these horror anthologies, you get other ones like Southbound. Southbound was a cool interconnected horror anthology, and those were actually all connected into one story. But they chopped it up like a Tarantino film. But each story is contained because it leads into the next story. And timeline-wise, they're all concurrent, but they're all happening at the same time. But you can't tell because they only meet like fly-by-night kind of thing.
See, what I like, I've mainly seen this in dramas and comedy, which is, I'm sure as soon as I mention the trope, you're going to name off like 2 or 3 horror movies that do this. Mm-hmm. But I honestly like the trope of the exact same story, but shown from different characters' perspective, because of course everyone gets split up in a way.
Yeah, like Clue.
Yeah, maybe like Clue. But I remember... odd pull, but I listened to someone do a whole breakdown on this, and it makes me want to actually go rewatch the show again. Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah.
There was a whole episode where it was just getting the kids to school. But part of it was part of the episode was all Dewey's perspective.
Yeah.
Another part of it was all Hal's perspective. Another part of it was all the moms, all Malcolm's. And it's like they broke up each part of the commercial break with someone's new perspective. And then by the last commercial break, everyone's stories are kind of intertwining, and you're seeing how everyone is overlapping. Like, wait, why the fuck did that happen like randomly in that person's POV? And then later on it's like, oh, because they set that up and that wound up happening. So it was like all comedy hijinks bullshit. But I think that'd be kind of interesting in a horror film.
And that actually goes back to like true crime, because you're telling the story. A big one is, especially now on Netflix. Okay, so we got the Dahmer series. All right, that's the story of Jeffrey Dahmer, told by the people who lived with Jeffrey Dahmer, who survived Jeffrey Dahmer. Then we have the Dahmer tapes, him telling people, I'm not crazy, it's a compulsion. So now we get his point of view. True crime does this a lot, because you get all these speculations and stuff like that. It's just, especially the JonBenet Ramsey story, which has like 40 fucking perspectives. I only care about one, the cop who said to himself, I have 19 bullets in this motherfucking gun, I gotta get out of this house. So like, that's the one perspective I like. Them just counting the fucking bullets in their gun, just like in the basement with the dead kid and the dad. I'm just like, oh fuck. But like, we're introduced to these type of stories very early on with scary stories.
Yep.
So like that, when we're kids, we get Goosebumps. We get these little horror books.
Yep, things that pop up on Nickelodeon and things like that.
Tales of the Dark.
Tales from the Dark Side? No.
Scary Stories in the Dark or some shit.
If You're Afraid of the Dark.
If You're Afraid of the Dark.
That's
with those fucking kids with the sand. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you the story about this clown who wins. It's just like, God damn.
No, I remember watching the Goosebumps show. I think that may have been on
Coolest
like WB or something.
Cool intro. Yeah. It was back when UPN was still existed.
Yeah.
United Paramount Network.
I remember that.
Yeah, now it's just Paramount.
Yep. But no, so I definitely remember watching that kind of stuff, and that was around the time, like I said, I was really getting more into comic books and shit too. Mm-hmm. Which actually kind of ties into probably my favorite of the anthology movies, which is Trick or Treat, and that actually started as a comic series.
Yes. What was really cool is
also like Tales from the Crypt.
Trick or Treat was more of a graphic novel.
Okay.
The way it was produced and made, it wasn't like a comic just bought off at the gas station. It was actually a book.
Right. I mean, it was still released issue by issue.
Yeah. And the level of detail on that, because of its sort of a short run, I consider it more of a graphic novel, because graphic novels tend to be a little bit more produced, like your V for Vendettas, your Sandman, stuff like that. The story is very precise. It's not a lot of expanded characters like you'd see in our favorite like DC and Marvel type stuff. Like they're part of it, but very loose. Trick or Treat, when that comic came out, was just another version of Haunting Tales or Tales from the Crypt or Houses of Horror. those old comics.
God, Houses of Horror. I forgot about that.
So like your old comics, that were banned and just like sold in like back alley shops and shit like that. So that's where that comes from. And
actually, a shout out to our local comic shop. Heroes Aren't Hard to Find. I want to say, I know they had the issues, but I want to say they actually had a card at one point for all their back catalog, and it said they had in quotes like the band, unquote, horror comics of the, in the decades.
Yeah, back when they had the comics code and stuff like that, which some of that stuff we've talked about before is like the villain can't win, a woman can't kill a man,
Police have to be shown in a positive light.
Yes, the good always has to prevail, which is fucking stupid, because that doesn't happen.
No.
Sometimes the cops are the bad guys. Often they are the bad guys.
I was about to say a lot of times they are.
Yeah, and it's really carried on because of Trick or Treat. When that movie came out, it didn't get a lot of praise when it came out. It has a great cult following, I will say that. But I remember watching that like every Halloween for like 3 years.
Oh yeah,
that's a go-to. It's fun. It's gimmicky. It's all within a small area, which is really cool because
it all just kind of takes place in a small little neighborhood.
Yes, and it's one neighborhood's version of Halloween.
Right.
And everyone's a little bit different. We get some outsiders coming to the town, these young girls, and you're thinking, okay, we see them in passing with that fat kid that kind of opens it up, who's walking through the streets, and he walks down the neighborhood, starts bashing pumpkins, and
like a little son of a bitch.
Yeah, and he gets 86th by a fucking principal, who ends up himself being a villain, who ends up getting his comeuppance by the strange girls in the town, the ones we worried about in the beginning. Anna Paquin plays the main chick, and she's bebopping down the fucking road at dark. She's lost technically, and because her friends were fucking around with these guys in a van.
Yeah, she's a Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah, she's a Little Red Riding, and the principal is the wolf, pretty much, and he fucked up. Yep, which is which. Those are always fan favorites, It's like watching the stories of the bully getting his ass kicked or his teeth kicked in. But it's the same thing.
Well, so we kind of discussed this on the CCC podcast when we briefly mentioned the show, but it's or the movie. But I think this is the best Halloween movie, and not necessarily the best horror movie, but definitely the best Halloween movie. And the reason why I say that, and because we've even talked about this off mic before, but it's it perfectly captures that feeling of Halloween when you were younger. The slight mystery of it. There's not a lot of fantasy outside of ghost elements, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, you used to have like your werewolves.
Yeah, but so much of the world is still grounded in some sort of reality, and the things that aren't are seemingly hidden, and people kind of have a blind eye to and don't notice.
It's a Hallmark version of Halloween.
Kind of, yeah.
Because if you don't respect the holiday, you deserve what you get.
Exactly.
And every one of them get their comeuppance.
Yep.
We get the ghost children who were murdered by the bus driver. Well, what happened to the bus driver? Watch till the end. Hey, there's this kid's disrespecting Halloween pumpkins, smashing shit. He gets his.
Yep.
The woman, the guy who's with his wife, she decides to take the fucking shit down. He's like, "What are you talking about? Leave it up. We'll get it in the morning." She's like, "No, I want this shit out of my house."
He's like, "Fine, I'll watch a porno."
Yeah, he's like, "I'll meet you upstairs." She's like, "Put in the tape." And it's just like, yeah, that's funny. It's like, yeah, couples watch porn together just to get riled up. And it kind of, especially in the town itself is celebrating the holiday in full tilt, with the parade, people running around, and that's cool. That's something I didn't really see growing up.
Me neither.
The only time I kind of saw something like that was before sundown, and all the kids were dressed up, and I was standing outside of a tattoo shop handing out candy
Nice.
with some buddies of mine because I just got some tattoos done, and they're like, "Hey man, you want to help pass out candy?" I was like, "Fuck yes, I do," because I was like, but there was no parade. It was just
Right.
it was the most I've ever seen my town full, kind of, other than the open concerts they did. But
Yeah, I
that's-
got that small feeling like when we had dress up day, like at school, you know, and all the kids, you know, had our trick or treat buckets, you know, and everyone was dressed up, you know, it was encouraged and shit like that. But and that whole group would sometimes meet up that evening to go trick or treating together because it was such a small town. It was like, well, you know, why don't their classes all kind of meet up in one area and then, you know, hit all the
I
neighborhoods?
went to a middle school Halloween dance when I was in 6th grade.
Really, they had Halloween dances. They didn't even.
It was a
have
Halloween
those.
event.
Oh, okay.
But it was like a
Yeah.
it was like a dance or just like a lock-in.
Yeah.
And they did it twice. I did it twice in 6th grade. They had what's called a lock-in, where
Yep.
everybody just kind of stays for a long time at the school. You used to stay over, and but they were doing like you could walk around the school. You know, the library was showing Hocus Pocus, I think.
Ew.
You could, but it was a double feature. Like
Right,
you
right,
could watch
right.
that or like Nightmare Before Christmas or something like that. Which
Right.
I was like, okay.
Little early, but
my
okay.
my ass would be like found on the computer on like quicksilverstream.com and just like, let me stream the next horror movie if the internet's fucking good.
Give me Friday the 13th.
Yeah, give me Friday the 13th. But no, it was fun. It was, you know, it was one of those things where you interact with older kids too, because
Yeah.
middle school 6th, 7th, 8th. So no, it was fun. But you know, you still go back to the old trick or treating, you know, which is part of the holiday. My favorite part of the holiday was actually just eating candy, watching movies. You know, because
well, that's all I had.
because you wanted to ramp yourself up, and trick or treat does that. You know, trick or treat, was a great parallel of what different versions of how people spend Halloween. You know, some people go trick or treating, some people go to parties, some people do this, some people do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, the very first example was, the couple who decorated their yard, whereas you clearly saw the neighbor, which was the old man down the way, clearly did not.
Yeah.
And then the immediate next door neighbor was the dad. And he kind of had his place kind of nicely done, not too extravagant, but he was the one giving out candy.
He kept it simple.
Yeah.
So him and his son were trick or treating, or his son was trick or treating with some friends. This boy shows up, and it was the whole
Smashing the pumpkins.
What was the good faith box? Everyone gets one.
Yep. And then he's just like
taking all of them, and the kid starts Mr. Peters, I think his name was, and then he's like,
eventually comes out. He's like,
"What are you doing, you fat bastard?"
Yeah, basically.
And you see the razor blade in the fucking candy bar.
Yep.
And it was very well done because he just starts bleh, bleh. And I think that's the same fat kid from Bad Santa.
Okay, yeah, the principal's name was Stephen Wilkins.
Yes, because you said the neighbor, "Hey, Wilkins, what you got over there?" He's like looking through the window. "What you doing? Huh? You burying bodies?" Like joking with him, and he's just
Yeah,
like,
because after the kid dies of like chocolate asphyxiation, essentially.
and he actually trains his son.
Well, you don't find that out till the end. That's what I really like about that first bit, because it's like he kills the kid with a whole bunch of like what seemed like expanding chocolate, because he just started puking chocolate everywhere,
Blood and chocolate.
Yeah. And eventually he picks him up, drags him to the backyard, digs a hole, is like in the process of like trying to bury him. The kid's like slowly coming back, so they're implementing the comedy aspect. The kid's slowly coming back to life, and he's like, "No!" Smacks him in the head with a shovel.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, the old man, his dog starts getting loose.
Yeah.
And he grabs one of the fingers, and he's like, "Shit!" And at that time, there's like the kid is even coming out. "Hey, Dad!" He's like, "Shh, shut up!" And then at that point, then the old man's coming out. So it's like everything is coming down on him, and you're thinking. But one thing you're honestly worried about is the kid finding out, because you're just like, "Oh shit!" Then he might have to kill his son. That's not good. And he's like, the son's really getting on his nerves. So you're starting to feel like, oh shit, he might be getting the axe. As he comes on in, scares his dad.
You remember what happens when he finishes burying the body?
Yes, as he's walking back in the door, you hear the old man yelling, "Hey, Wilkins, Wilkins!" And then you see him get taken right away from the window. So it also plants that seed of, you might find out what happened there.
Because it runs in a very weird concurrent timeline. Because
Exactly.
in the order of kills, the couple in the beginning are the last to die.
Yep.
the Wilkins gets 86 later on. Mm-hmm. It's probably the last one, because it's deep into the night where he gets
in
killed.
the middle of the woods.
Yeah, so
But I do love the scene though, where it's like the kid scares him, and he's like, let me take you downstairs, son. And that's when your heart drops. You're like, oh, fuck, he's about to kill that kid. And he's even like grabbing the knife with him. He's like, here, let me show you. And he's just like, we have to make sure the eyes look good. And then it's like, they zoom out and it's like a kid's head. And you're like, oh, fuck, he's grooming this kid to be a serial killer. This is fucked up.
A cool version of this is if you get a chance, watch the movie Hellfest, which is a Halloween festival that's happening, and there's an actual killer in the park, and at the very end, spoiler alert, you see the guy's feet, which is the classic, you never see the killer but you see his feet, and he's walking into a house and there's a little girl sleeping on the couch watching horror movies, and you're like, oh fuck, he's gonna kill this little girl. It's just like, nope, daddy, and he brings her like a little stuffed animal, and it's just like, okay,
yeah,
I can't hate this man that much, even though he 86 like 8 teenagers, because he's a family man.
You gotta have respect for the family man.
Michael Myers is a family man.
But no, so the reason I actually said this movie to me feels like it's a bit more grounded in reality is one of the moments you asked me about to make sure I mentioned is one of the reasons why I feel that it is more grounded is because Wilkins didn't see it. He was still completely oblivious to it, much like the next scene with the teenager girls. They go in, get their costumes, flirting with the boy up front, and then eventually they run into what we find out later is Wilkins, and he's kind of dressed up like a vampire.
Yeah, he's already killed a girl.
Yeah, he's killed a girl that night. And here's the problem. He killed the girl, rested her up against the sidewalk, and no one noticed. No. And then at one point, someone starts yelling, this man's a problem, or, starts screaming. No one's paying attention. No one's none the wiser. So they create the town in such a kind of almost realistic ignorance. Because here's the thing. You got to imagine this is... I forget where they say this is, or if it actually mentions a town. Either way, it's kind of like a New Orleans type vibe where they've kind of got that big parade going down. So with everyone kind of crowding those cities, no one's going to notice a girl just kind of propped up on the sidewalk against the building, deader in hell. They're probably thinking, oh, she's drunk off her ass already at 10 o'clock and, she's sleeping it off.
Yeah, so... I kind of get like a small town vibe from it because all the shops are across, like on the street and stuff like that, like a Hawkins or a Springfield or a Haddonfield or wherever the fuck Elm Street is. It's like all these little mom and pop shops,
I will say though, honestly, my least favorite is the teenage girl one, like the way they wrap it up, because Wilkins winds up trying to go after her. All the other girls have left the one that was in the Red Riding Hood, because you got like the two hot girls and then the one kind of
Cinderella and Snow White.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got like your basic one that's having trouble finding a man, but the super slutty ones have already like nabbed their like TV crew guys or whoever the fuck. So it flashes back to the party where the slutty friends are at, and they're making out with the guys, all this other stuff, and then all of a sudden you see Wilkins' body drop. Well, you don't know it's him yet, but you see his body drop, and they reveal the mask, and it's like, holy fuck. And then she comes in, and it's like, oh, okay, this is kind of interesting. I'm still sold. I'm like, all right, this is pretty interesting. Then a version of Sweet Dreams Are Made of These start playing as they do the transformations into wolves. Yeah, it's the Marilyn Manson version. That to me sucks any of the fun right out of that movie.
I like that because
that's the only moment that it smelled of the time.
Yeah.
Everything else felt very ambiguous. The moment that song kicked in, I was like,
It was a song of the times, and
that's what I'm saying.
He covered it really well, and he did that in Personal Jesus. Those two songs he covers.
They're fine covers, but like for that in the movie, it all of a sudden kind of dated it when everything else felt very ambiguous.
Well, you kind of get that with like other horror movies that came out around that time, like what was it? I'm trying to remember the name of it, but anyway, it has that same dated type music in it.
Yeah.
And it kind of like touchstones the time stamp on it. But I thought it was cool just for the fact that he got his at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, hey, he's a realistic predator, he's a killer, blah, blah, blah.
And it's the guy you would never expect. It's the school principal.
And just like the women, you expect them to get killed because now it's a campfire type party. They're in the middle of the woods. That fire's going to die down because they're all drunk and no one's paying attention. You're thinking, one of these girls might get fucking killed. And in fact, it might be the weak one.
Yep. And all the slutty looking girls, 2 of them, I think, have already got in the middle of the parade by the vampire dude. So there is a threat. So you're kind of worried about them. And
her friends are all at that campfire with their own guys, and then it just goes to hell. And as a person that likes werewolf type stuff and hasn't seen a really good werewolf movie in a very long time,
we might be getting one soon.
I fucking hope
Werewolf
so.
by Night.
Yeah, but but it's a Marvel thing.
Hey, I don't know. The trailer looked pretty good.
It did. But I want a really good, genuine like
Wolfman,
kind of like Silver Bullet. Silver Bullet was a great one, except that it does do this weird like fantasy thing, like American Werewolf in Paris, where it's just like
London.
No, American Werewolf in Paris is the worst one.
See, I hadn't even seen that one. I thought that was just a slip of the tongue because I was about to mention that movie.
That was made later on, and it's either really, really liked or really, really fucking hated. I had it on VHS.
That one.
I had it on American Werewolf in London was funny because it had Nazi werewolves.
Yeah, that's why I was going to bring that one up. That's why I was like, Chris will have fun with that.
That's a fun one. But dog soldiers, hell yeah.
Honestly, though, aside from the very last moment in the movie, my favorite is the school bus massacre.
Yeah,
I think that was not necessarily a great story, but it was shot very well.
Because what it does is it kind of timestamps it a little bit because you're not quite sure what year it is in the present.
Yeah.
All right, so the present could be somewhere between 2002 and 2007. That's where it was. Wilkins, the old man next door, he's very old. He's played by Brian. I can't remember his name.
I don't have the IMDb up.
He looks like Brian Dennehy, but it's not Brian Dennehy. But anyway,
Brian Cox.
Brian Cox. Yep. Brian Cox plays him, and what we see is the long ago, when Brian Cox was a younger man, he's paid by the town to kill the disabled children.
Yes.
And he barely escapes with his life in that scene because one of the kid gets up.
Well, I like the setup because the kids show up and they meet the weird girl, as they call her. But one kid is like super nice to her. He's like, I like your costume, because the girl is being super bitchy to her.
The angel.
Yeah, but the boy is just like, I like your costume, and eventually it's just like, hey, be nice to her, because it all started as the kid's urban legend. It's like, did you not hear about the school bus massacre? And then you get the backstory through their narrative.
So they're displaying 3 different tropes here: the weird girl, your Carrie, your super intelligent witch, the girl herself. Oh, it's based off Samhain. She's given the history of Halloween. Someone who urgently respects the holiday.
Yes, because she was the one that explained you have to respect the jack-o'-lanterns.
And then we get, the fireside chat while they're going to the quarry. Which kind of, I love this because this could be Arlen, Texas, if you wanted it to be.
Exactly.
Like they're just so, everything's so close to each other, and that where kids could walk there. This is a great thing about Stranger Things. Stranger Things does the same thing. They have a quarry. They have the small town parade. They have the close knit kids.
Everything's in a bike's distance away.
Yeah, everyone rides a geological oddity.
Yeah,
everything's bike right away. It's fucking bullshit.
But yeah, so it's like they make their way down there, and then they scare the special girl, breaks her glasses. So they're like, fuck you. And then someone else starts coming up from the muck.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh shit. And then she's getting away. She's getting in the thing. And all of a sudden, everyone's begging her. It's like, please let me in. And she just shakes her head no, drops the key, presses the button, and just goes all the way up. And for the second time, only the second time, I think, in the movie. Actually, no, sorry. You see him a few times, but it's the first time anyone acknowledges the little pumpkin head character.
Yeah, Jack.
The sack head. Yeah. This is the first time that she gets off the elevator and looks, because he's got a big wheelbarrow of the pumpkins. And she just kind of looks at him, They kind of look at each other, and then she just kind of keeps walking. Where every other time, you'd see him kind of in the background or, like, you know, on the side of the road doing something as a car went by.
I think his name's Sam.
Sam, that's right, yes.
Yeah, so it was really fun to see, you know, them acknowledge here and there.
Yes.
When the couple come home, he's across the street watching this bitch. The fat kid smashing pumpkins. He's watching, but he knows what's coming.
Yeah.
You know, and
he's like, someone else will take care of that.
He's even at the campfire with the the teenage girls, her werewolf. He's just there chilling.
Yep.
And
he's sitting on the log.
And he's kind of one of those characters that is just like multi-spatial, who appears wherever he's needed, much like your Santa Clauses, your Hanukkah monsters.
Would you say he is the spirit of Halloween?
Yeah. Yeah, he's like an Easter bunny or Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And it's cool like they have that. Like, he's the embodiment of Halloween because he's very simple looking. He looks like the very first American celebration of Halloween. You know?
Yeah, it honestly
burlap
looks like
sack, a kid with candy.
Yeah, it looks like a 6-7-year-old with a burlap sack on. Yeah, exactly. So
it's really cool because you kind of think about, like, when you're looking up the old photos of Halloween, which we talk about on Myths and Legends, they're genuinely fucked up looking to us, but back then it was just comicky and gimmicky because they're all homemade.
Oh yeah, even like young, or like early clowns, you'd see kids like laughing and having fun with them, but you'd see the face makeup and it's like, good God Almighty, that's terrifying.
Or like the homemade Mickey Mouse masks from like the 30s.
Oh my God, it's like nightmare inducing.
Yeah, the whole idea of homemade costumes back then, you know, because, you know, this is an Irish holiday that's Americanized a little bit, just like all other holidays we celebrate. It's very important to have that, and it goes into especially the tail end of the year where we get 3 major holidays: Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, where we're all gathered around the fire. And, you know, that's more human tradition than anything. It's like it's getting cold outside, everyone gather around, and that's what I really like about some horror movies that do the town that's by itself, like kind of strayed off the path a little bit, that's alone. Like Storm of the Century does a very good version of this, where you can't get in the town and you can't get out of the town. Yeah, you know, you're stuck for some other odd reason. You're stuck. Evil Dead does this very well within a cabin. Yeah, but it goes back into that mentality we have in our brain, that lizard brain, of we need to stick together because the night's long and it's rough out here. And
then we've got our final bit, the last bit, and I think you like this one the best because it kind of really touches on all the different plot points to a point. Because all of a sudden it almost flashes back to the beginning of the movie. You got the old man sitting on the chair because, with the some kids ring the doorbell at the old man's house, and the door opens up and it's the dog, and they get freaked the fuck out because he's got on like these goggles that make his eyes green, and it's just a scare tactic for the old man to keep kids away. And his place is run the fuck down.
And that was what I liked about this, because in any other spirit of Halloween, all these people are immediately consequence. Hey, what did the fat kid do? He fucked up Halloween. He got. This lady took down her holiday decorations too early and was a bitch. Got. Wilkinson was a dick and tried to murder more women. He got.
These kids were an asshole to the special kid.
The great thing about Wilkinson's story is he was miserable with Creed. Yeah. The great thing about him was he's miserable with guilt after he kills his kids. That's why his house looks like shit. He doesn't have a family. He's old. He's decrepit. No one wants to talk to him. No one wants to go to his house. So he's feeling the consequence of life. And then only then does Sam show up and, you know, gets him.
And even the reveal of it was pretty interesting too, because at first you just think it's the crouchy old man, and it's like, okay, what's he gonna do? Yeah. And then eventually you see him like burning a box of photos, and one of the photos is all the kids, and you see the scar on his face that the young bus driver got after he drove the bus into the quarry.
And what you're seeing is, when you see, like, you know, in a film setting, when you see someone start burning these things, it's them acknowledging, okay, I did it, I don't care anymore. It's probably kind of like no more remorse. and
No more guilt.
No more guilt. And because of that, Sam is fucking infuriated and goes after his ass.
Yep.
No, you're supposed to live with this until you die of a heart attack on your couch.
Because Sam does insert himself there, because while the kids are discussing the flashback and when the bus driver takes the different route, as soon as he takes the different route, that's when this shows like Sam on the side of the road, and they just happen to pass him. Like they just show the bus pass, and he's just standing there on the side of the road kind of looking at it. So he inserted himself there all the way back. So even kind of showing that this is a multi-generational
he's a pillar in time.
Yeah.
And he's a witness who's also a judge and executioner. And
he's like, you don't feel guilty about this anymore? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you
You
were serving a life sentence, but now you're getting the death penalty.
Yeah.
And it kind of he gets what's kind of delayed and reserved, but also he lived a life of loneliness.
Well, even that whole final, I'll kind of call it a final fight, was set up really well, because you really didn't know what was going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Because there was a few times the old man got the leg up, but then there was like, Sam was throwing, glass on the ground and, really debilitating him.
He sticks Sam in the fucking head, and you're like, oh, fuck, he killed that motherfucker.
Yeah, because you find out he's a pumpkin head.
Yeah, it's a pumpkin head, which is very, very needed, because you can't kill the spirit of the Halloween.
Yeah, because it's like after he gets blown up, I think one of the really cool scenes I thought, because they used practical effects, was he like chopped his hand off or something, and like the hand like went across the room, and like you see Sam kind of look up at it, and then like the Thing, or the Thing in the Munsters, Adam Sandler, hops up and just kind of like starts walking back to him, and then he's like puts his little nub out and it like reconnects. He like looks up at it, kind of gives him the little fist, and he's just like,
yeah, he's just freaking out.
He's like, I can't kill the son of a bitch. But the reason I thought it was such a satisfying fight is all that back and forth, and then what winds up getting him away is he gets them into the living room. The kid's got Sam's got his broken off lollipop that he's already taking a bite off of.
It's a shiv.
He's lifting it up against this old man's head. He's about to bring it down, presumably in his eye, and his chest. He was about to slam it down into his chest, but what winds up happening is there's a candy bar on his chest. Lands on the candy bar. He notices, pulls it up, takes a bite, walks out of the room. And it's just like, oh shit, that's interesting. All right, well, the old man just got beat up real fucking good. All right, that's a pretty satisfying ending. And then, it shows kind of like, I think it was the following year or something like that. No, it was like later that night. That's what it was. Later that night.
He opens the door, and because trick-or-treaters are showed up, but
but it's real kids, and he's like, he's being nice, but he's all bandaged up, and he's like, here, have all my candy, and he's like,
being really, you a mummy?
He's like, shut up, kid, just gives a little bit more candy. So it's like he's finally, you think that's his punishment. It's like, okay, well, the old man is finally embracing Halloween. All is good. He shuts the door, he pets his little dog again, all that stuff. Ding, 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 ding. You see a little happy, surprised look on his face. He whips back around, opens the door. All the mummy kids, all the dead kids from the school bus.
Yeah, the swamp kids.
Yeah. And it just ends right there. You don't see them kill them, but it's like you presume, because it ends on that Halloween music.
And it's kind of a great it's a great anthology series. It reminds me of Krampus.
Yeah, which I was gonna say. Hey, there's your CCC episode for Halloween. Christmas.
Yeah, so like it's the consequence of a holiday, of not respecting the holiday. And what's funny is Halloween and Christmas are pretty much, in a weird way, super related to each other.
So opposed, but so related.
So both ideas of how we celebrate both holidays come from Ireland, especially with the tree. Even though the Bible says don't do that, don't do a lot of things.
Don't eat pork.
Don't eat pork.
Although that's Old Testament, so I can't.
It's before you had the kid.
He had a kid mellowed out.
Yeah, mellowed out. All that fire and brimstone just went out the fucking door.
It was so sacrilegious.
I'll do a Bible study episode every Sunday.
Oh God!
Every Sunday before Russ comes over. But so like we get these weird Americanized holidays.
Yeah.
Ireland was, Halloween is Hallows Eve on Hallows Day, which is November 1st. So we're celebrating an eve of a holiday with Samhain. Samhain is a lot of other cultures, respect the dead.
Day of the Dead.
The version of Day of the Dead. Hispania, a lot of Latin cultures have the Day of the Dead. Mexico celebrates a great big holiday on that.
Oh yeah, their parades are nuts,
to the point where Disney made a movie.
Yeah.
And
you're like, and it was sad, and I want to talk about it.
Yeah, it is sad. All Disney movies are sad because Disney doesn't believe in two full family household. But the way we celebrate them is a lot different from when they originally celebrated.
Right.
Even now, it's celebrated different from when we were kids.
Absolutely.
And our parents were kids. It's become kind of a perversion, and not like a too bad of a way, to where. When do we start seeing Halloween stuff? Probably September. When do you start seeing Christmas stuff?
October 1st.
July.
No, dude, seriously, me and my girl, we went to the Target that's right down the road because she's super excited about Halloween. And we were just wanting to see if they had like any of the decorations or any of the little small stuff kind of scattered about. And yeah, they had started like putting up their Halloween shit. No fucking lie, in the back corner were Christmas lights, and like they started putting out Christmas shit at the exact same time they were putting out Halloween shit.
Yeah.
And both of us just got unreasonably just annoyed by that. We were just, what the fuck? So no,
Yeah.
I remember Halloween, even when I was younger, just had a lot more of that feeling of what Trick or Treat had. And I think that's the reason I liked it, because the movie, it was even shot on, I believe it was shot on film. So it has even that natural grain to it. The colors were very orange and red heavy. And I remember as a kid, Halloween being very orange and red.
Yeah.
Like only recently have they introduced the greens and purples more.
Yeah, so that's more of an actually Midwest aesthetic, with the greens and purples, because of what grows out there, which is lavender, But what's really funny is the way this kind of shows the different ways people celebrate Halloween. You got your crotchety Mr. Creed, who doesn't respect the holiday. You got your couple who played along with the holiday until they didn't. Mm-hmm. You got the kids who... The
guy's excited. The girl's a little like,
so
we're done with your little kids' Halloween
You got the kids who are going to play a trick, and then the trick goes too far. Creed survives because he supplies a treat haphazardly to the spirit of Halloween, and then he gets killed.
Yeah.
So it's very elaborate in the way that they do the storytelling, I think, and the more you watch it, the more you kind of notice little things.
Oh yeah, and I think that's the reason why I like watching it at least like once a year. I think this is going to be year 3 or 4 of watching it at least once a year. And again, I notice new little things every time. It is one of those movies where it's the details that count. And I think that's very important in life and in storytelling, where the tiny details really make something feel more genuine. Like for instance, the Krieg's house being so run down and lived in. He could have just had a regular old house, but the detail they went into making that place look old, or either scouting a place that really looked old. It's that kind of detail that adds to the realness of the story and kind of keeps you engaged.
And I think some of the best like horror movies you could watch for the season are all that take place in fall.
And a lot of them are anthology series.
Yeah, and like you get these... You want to make sure if you're going to do something for the Halloween season, it has that, the leaves are falling, it's a little chill in the air, it gets real cold at night, and there's a semblance of camaraderie with your friends or family that kind of goes to a darker end.
Yeah.
And you need that for any type of Halloween-esque movie. Which was kind of like what's great about the movie Halloween is because it plays on the fear. One of the great myths that we actually skipped over was the predator. There's a predator out there during Halloween's going after your kids. This stranger in the town that no one seems to know because everyone's wearing a costume.
Yep.
Everyone's wearing a mask. You can't see who true people are, which is why I think Halloween gets a bad rap to begin with, is these people showing who they want to be during the holiday season. And you kind of put on like in a weird way, you put on a facade during the holiday season between Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, where you have to put on this face of like, yeah, everything's fine. You know, that thing that people don't want to do, which is give.
Yeah.
No one wants to give any goddamn thing. Because it's just nature. You know, you're handing out candy, you're handing out food, you're handing out gifts.
Yeah.
You know, it's a progression of money.
It starts with the $5 bag of candy, then it gets to the $40 meal or part of the meal that you're going to supply for Thanksgiving.
And we're raised on that as children.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to, you know, what myths do you believe? You know, the myth of the tooth fairy. Yes, I give a part of myself for money. What does that sound like? It sounds like breaking my goddamn back. You go to strangers for a treat, you know, and you go from candy to money to things. You know, it's just like it's a nice progression of how we keep people in line in society. I know I have a very askew version of this, but you know.
Well, also to kind of wrap this part up, talking about horror anthologies, do you consider an anthology a self-contained one movie of multiple parts, or is a horror anthology also, say, 3 separate movies?
So, in a way, both, but
Okay.
they have to be interconnected in a way that we understand.
Well, let's say Halloween 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, Halloween 1, 2, yeah, that's an anthology. The third one has nothing to do with that fucking movie.
Right, that's why I wanted to
And
use
here's
that
something
one.
that's going to piss people off. Season of the Witch is a good Halloween movie. The holiday movie. Season of the Witch is a great holiday celebrating Halloween like Trick or Treat.
Okay.
It's the same thing. It
Yeah.
just has nothing to do with Michael Myers, but it's a fun thing. Silver Shamrock. I hope everybody has that burned into their skulls while we're listening to this. Silver Shamrock. Fuck you. But like it is a villainous, you know, story of Halloween. You know,
Yeah.
everyone buys these masks from this OCP type corporation. It's literally the bad guy from RoboCop who's the bad guy. So
well, what about like Friday 1, 2, and 3?
Friday 1, 2, and 3 is a great story, which they kind of did with a new Friday the 13th remake, where they put all 3 movies together.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are technically anthology series because they kind of keep a linear timeline until you get to X.
Yeah.
Where he's in space.
In space. Oh, I was just about to do that.
And like, so I consider those more of just series. Anthology, you know, when we think of anthologies, you know, we think of Creepshow, Tales from the Crypt, stuff like that. That their niche, scary stories to tell in the dark, you know, their niche is to tell multiple stories of horror tales in a short version.
Yeah.
Tales from the Dark Side is actually what was supposed to be Creepshow 3.
Okay.
If everybody gets a chance, it's a great. Debbie Harry's in it.
Okay.
Debbie Harry's, Kirsten Slater, Steve Buscemi, quite a few, and then it's like those great stories because it's self-contained. It's in just a small little amount. A great one is the one with Adrienne Barbeau, The Creature in the Box in the Creepshow, where it's like, hey, I got this thing and it's in a box. It's a monster, and his nagged fucking wife. It's just like, you're useless. It's Hal Holbrook, and he throws her ass in the box, and she gets 8. And like that's a great story, you know. But it's self-contained within 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Ted Danson gets killed by Leslie Nielsen.
Oh,
comes
shit.
back as a zombie and kills his ass.
Nice.
Great fucking story. Stephen King finds a meteor that takes over his body.
I feel like I remember seeing clips of that one.
Ooh, wowzers.
Yeah.
That's what he says. And he becomes overgrown into like this swamp thing looking motherfucker. And you got the guy who is super about cleanliness and finds a bug in his apartment. And then it's more bugs and more bugs. Uh-oh. And it's just a overflow of roaches coming out of his faucet. Like that's a great series, and like it's all self-contained within 20 to 30 minutes. And that's why Tales from the Crypt can do it a great job, because they can do it in less than an hour.
Right.
But when we go to like Southbound, you know, same thing. It's contained within a linear storyline. It's just shown different perspectives, like Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction is technically an anthology.
Okay, yeah. What about the Grindhouse double feature?
Same. If you watch them as a double feature.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking of the one specifically from like the mid-2000s.
The Planet Terror and the Death Proof and stuff like that. Yeah. So the problem with those were they got released at 2 different times, but within like 2 weeks or 3 weeks of each other. So there's no way.
I thought they were even playing as a double feature in theaters.
Ours didn't show them as a double feature. Ours showed them as a single.
Oh, okay.
Which is fucking stupid.
Yeah,
that's why they got
weird.
shut down. But you know, if you can watch it in a sitting, yeah. And what's a great time to do that? Halloween.
Oh yeah, baby.
We're not going to work. You know, we're just like we're handing out candy and watching horror movies. You know? And it's kind of great. Because when I had my nieces with me one time, especially the older one, they left me home alone with her. I'm just like, okay, we're not watching this bullshit. So I just like clicked the food. I put on Evil Dead.
Yeah.
And because she was very, very young, like 1, so the red, black, and white colors really caught her attention. And it's just like, after they blow that chick's head off against that fucking post, and her mom comes in, I'm like, what are you watching? I'm like, we're watching Evil Dead, because it's what they're my nieces. We're gonna watch. I want to introduce them because the video store doesn't fucking exist anymore. So yeah, we're gonna show them some scary shit, and they've actually kind of adapted to it pretty well. I will say the younger one is a little bit more aggressive.
That's what happens.
Oh man, she's a thug. She'll fuck somebody up. Shout out to her. Listen to this at years on. She's gonna be white knuckling a fucking steering wheel, hitting people with her car. She wants to be a cop.
Oh boy. Oh man. Well, I guess that is a pretty good place to kind of end our episode on anthology movies. What would you say your favorite of the anthology movies are? So mine's already Trick or Treat.
Yeah, so probably Tales from the Dark Side, just because it's how well it's done. Mm-hmm. The Creep Shows are always a classic though. Don't watch number 3; it's terrible. But Creep Show 1, 2, and Tales from the Dark Side are a good one. Another one that's actually kind of a special one in my heart is Tales from the Hood. Tales from the Hood is probably one of the better anthologies because of how fucked up. You get the story of Crazy K, slave puppets, the civil rights leader who gets killed and comes back as a demon. So God, it's fucking awesome. The soundtrack is fantastic. I sat here with Cap and watched it. He's just like, what the fuck is this? But yeah, Tales from the Hood, always a classic.
Oh god, so I guess on that note, this has been another awesome episode of Spooky Couch Potatoes. And Chris, do you have any sort of final thoughts for us?
Hand out full-size candy bars.
Yes.
Don't nickel and dime these fucking kids like a bunch of assholes.
Give them real Halloween.
Handfuls. I want to see handfuls in them bags. I don't want to see you in a church parking lot handing out Bible verses and fucking knickknacks. Nah.